Hey friends, welcome back to Homeschool-ology. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Nikki. I'm a homeschooling mom about to enter her 10th year of homeschooling, which is mind-boggling, but we've been doing this for a while. We have 4 kiddos. They are about to be 9th grade, 5th grade, 1st grade, and kindergarten. And on this channel, I like to share homeschooling with you, homeschooling in general. We are a secular family, and I also share like our daily lives and just kind of motherhood and everything in between. So today's video is going to be another video in my new to homeschooling video series, and we're going to be talking about picking curriculum. Now, even if you're not new to homeschool, I want you to stick around because some of this might be helpful to you, and you might have advice that I didn't think of that you could share it down in the comments below. So stick around and let's talk about how to pick curriculum for your homeschool. All right, I've got about 8 steps here for you guys for how to choose curriculum. So the first couple are like actual steps that you're gonna follow, and then after that it gets a little muddy as to, order. So it's really more like 8 tips. All right, number 1, you're going to want to think about your homeschool style. So while I don't necessarily think that this is the most important thing in the world, it can help you when you're choosing curriculum, because if you know you are not a Charlotte Mason family, you are not somebody who likes to sit down and read a bunch of books, then you're not going to look at Charlotte Mason inspired curriculum. If you know that you guys don't like a lot of book work and you want more hands-on things, then you're going to look for that kind of curriculum. So it can be really helpful when you're looking at curriculum. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I have a whole video. I'll link it. It's on this side. I always get mixed up. It's on this side. I'll link it here. And it's a video that explains like some of the most common homeschool styles. I also have a blog post on it. I'll put my channel here for you guys if you would rather read than watch. But I explain what they are, and I will tell you that we are eclectic homeschoolers, which is kind of like the last one that I put on the list, and that is kind of just a mix of all of them. So while, yes, knowing your homeschool style can be really beneficial, you can also be a mix of them. You don't have to stick to it. Maybe you think you're a Charlotte Mason family, but then when you start doing it, maybe you're not. So you don't have to marry them, but it is helpful to know them when you're trying to pick homeschool curriculum. Okay, number 2 is you're going to think about your child's learning style. So there are lots of different learning style quizzes and learning style things out there. I'm not going to go into the whole bunch of the learning styles here because there's plenty of that information out there for you. And they're all a little bit different, so you kind of have to pick the one that you think. If your child is old enough, you might have them take one of those quizzes. If they're still young, maybe you're just starting out and you're not sure what their learning style is, that's okay. But knowing what your child's learning style is, so for example, my kiddos don't like things that take a really long time. So they want to kind of get in, get done, and move on. And they don't like doing a lot of like handwritten work. So they're more of like auditory learners than, actually writing things down. They don't really learn well that way. So when I'm going to think about that, I'm not going to pick up something like IEW structure and style, which is a lot of writing. I'm not going to pick up workbooks that are just sentences and after sentences. So knowing how my child learns best is they prefer video because they're, more auditory learners. So I'm going to look for things that have videos because I know that that's something that they learn well doing. So thinking about your child's learning style can be really beneficial when you are looking at curriculum. It helps you narrow down the wide field, because there's so much out there now, and you've got to narrow it down. So knowing how your child likes to learn can help you narrow down your choices, what you're going to look at. All right, number 3, and this is one that I think a lot of people kind of skip over, but you have to take into account your teaching style, okay? You're the instructor. Here's the long and short of it. If you aren't able to do it, it won't get done, okay? So while you might really love the idea of child-led learning, where you get to plan, you get to let your child choose what they learn about, and then you plan all of these wonderful activities based on that. That might be what you think is the most ideal learning environment. I know for me, that probably is what I think the most ideal learning environment is. But here we go. I am not the kind of mom who has the time or the energy or the want to set all that up, okay? So choosing something where I know I'm not going to be able, where I'm not going to be able to do it, it's not going to get done, okay? And I'm speaking from experience here. I've bought curriculum before that I just thought was so wonderful, and it sat on a shelf and we never touched it because I, the instructor, didn't have the ability to implement it. So that is something that I think a lot of people miss that you really need to consider. Now, here's the deal. If the curriculum is really going to fit your child well, and it might not necessarily fit your instructor style, but you want to give it a shot, go ahead and give it a shot, because you might surprise yourself. If it's important to your child, you might be able to make it happen. But when you're looking at these, really think about, is this something that I can implement? I love Blossom and Roots program, but I just can't implement it. I've tried, I've tried, and it's just not my style. It's just not how I roll. So while I think it's wonderful and my kids did enjoy the things that we did, it's just not how I roll. Number 4, what topics are you going to cover? So this might seem like, I'm going to cover them all. Repeat after me. You cannot do it all. Again, you cannot do it all. You won't be able to. It will set up an environment in your homeschool that is just it's just so much work that nobody wants to do it because it's just too much to be done. So really, and then you're not going to be able to take those rabbit holes and deep dives and all those things that really make homeschooling or learning at home valuable, because you're able to do those things. But if you've you've loaded up your day with all these things to do, it's just not going to go well. So you really want to kind of pick and choose what topics you're going to cover and when. So I'm not saying don't cover all the topics. I'm just saying you can't do them all at the same time. So what a lot of people like to do is they'll homeschool 6 weeks on, 1 week off, 6 weeks on, 1 week off. So an example of this could be, for the first 6 weeks, you're going to cover science and art, and then you're going to take a break. And when you come back for your next 6 weeks, you're going to cover history and geography, and then you're going to take a week off, and then you're going to go back to science and art, and continue on that path. Another way that people like to do it is days of the weeks. This is not my favorite way, because if your days get messed up, it can really kind of throw you for a loop. So this is not my favorite way, but what some people will do is on Tuesdays they do science, and then on Thursdays they do history. And it just allows you to really take the time to dive deep, go down those rabbit trails, really instill that child-led learning aspect without having to feel like you've got to rush to get to the next thing. So think about what topics you're going to cover. Even in high school, they don't cover all the topics every year, right? 1 year you'll take history, the next year you're going to take art. Art is probably something that they take every year, but history, and the next year you're going to take, a finance course. The next year you're going to take a computer course. So splitting it up, you can't cover it all. Don't try to cover it all. You're just setting yourself up for failure. So what areas are you going to be looking for curriculum? That's step number 4. All right, let's talk about step number 5. And this is kind of the last one where it becomes less steps and more tips. But step number 5 is you're going to rank your priorities. So talking about all the things we've talked about so far, so homeschool style, child learning style, your teaching style, and what topics you're going to cover. So you're going to put these in kind of an order. Is it more important to you that a curriculum matches your child's learning style, or that it matches your teaching style? Is it more important to you that it matches your homeschool style or your student's learning style? So how important are these things to you? We're going to rank those to say, if I'm looking at a curriculum and it matches my child's style but not necessarily mine, is it more important that I go with my child's style? So you're going to kind of look at, what am I looking for the most here? And then keep those other factors in mind. Don't forget about those. They're also important, but what is your priority here? All right, so the next 3 steps are kind of go all together, okay? So you're going to kind of do them similarly at the same time, but I wanted to, keep it in a list here, so we made a list. So the first one is you're gonna, now you know all these things. Now you know what you're looking for. Now you're gonna do your research, okay? If you start with research and you don't do these other things first, then you're gonna be overwhelmed because there really is so much to choose from nowadays, which is so great and so wonderful. I'm so glad that homeschool, has all the resources they have because they definitely didn't have them when I started. But the downside is it can be very overwhelming that you have so many choices. So doing those first steps are going to help you narrow it down. So now you know what you're looking for, you're going to go look for it. And while you're doing your research, go ahead and look at as many as you want. I try to limit myself to maybe 4 or 5 that I'm going to just take a peek at because I don't want to overwhelm myself. So I take a peek at 4 or 5, and then I'm going to narrow it down to 2 or 3 that are what I think is going to fit us best. Usually I try to narrow it down to 2, but if, sometimes there's a third one that I just can't, let go. So, but you're going to do your research and then you're going to narrow it down to just a couple per subject. Okay, guys, so when I was editing this, I realized I forgot a whole section of my notes, and it's what do I actually look for in curriculum? And so the first thing that I'm going to talk about is content. So is it secular or religious? Whichever one you're looking for. Does it align with your, what you're looking for? Does it cover what you think is important to include? So if you're covering history, does it include all the things that you want it to include? If you're covering science, does it include the things that you think should be included? For example, here, if you were secular, you would want it to include evolution. And so, there's a bunch of content out there that does not. So if that's something that's important to you, that you wanted to make sure it's included. Is it the right level for your child or your children? So is it a multi-level thing? Now this one's you can always adapt things to be more or less difficult. So that one's a little bit of a, take it for what you will. But so that's what I'm looking for where content is concerned. The next one is approach to learning. So what is the company's ideology for learning? How do they feel that children should be taught? How do they feel children should be learning? What is the best learning environment for them? And then what learning style is the curriculum geared towards? So does it align with your child's learning style? Next is the delivery method. So is it a video lesson, a workbook, hands-on, etc.? How are they presenting the material to you? Does that work for you as the homeschooler and for your child? And is it something that the child can do on their own, or is it something that you're going to have to do a lot? Is it really teacher intensive? You may not want to choose every piece of curriculum that requires you to be doing a lot. You might want to try to mix and match some independent things and then some teacher heavy things. And then last, of course, is cost. Does it fit in my budget, or can I adjust my other choices or my budget to include it? So those are the things that I'm looking for when I'm thinking about what I want out of a curriculum. So apparently I took some really crappy notes when I was taking notes for this video, and I forgot I misnumbered here, and there was one that I wanted to include, and it's your situation. So does a curriculum, what do you need to think about when you're looking at curriculum for your situation? Do you have space to store a bunch of curriculum pieces, or do you need something that's maybe more online that you can do digitally, or maybe you're looking for curriculum that has fewer pieces? Do you have time for it? So do you only have a limited amount of time to do schooling? So you need to look for pieces that are going to be, take up less time. And then can it be done as a family subject to kind of save time for you? So a lot of people do science and history as a family subject so that you're not doing, 6 subjects with each of your multiple children. So these are kind of things that you need to keep in mind about your situation that I missed when I was recording. So keep this in mind as well. Something really important to keep in mind here is your budget, okay? So if you know that you can't afford to spend $300 per subject, You are not going to go looking at Michael Clay Thompson. That's almost $300 if you buy the PDFs, okay? If you know that you need to be looking at free resources because your budget is tight, you know, so free or fairly inexpensive curriculum, then that's what you're going to focus on. Don't even bother looking at those more expensive ones if that's not something that you can do, you know, because you're going to fall in love with it and think it's great and then you can't afford to get it, okay? I'm not saying that I haven't bought some of these more expensive programs, you know, when our budget allowed. So I'm not saying like throw it out completely, you know, if it's something that you really think is useful, maybe you budget for that later in the future. But if you know right now, when you're ready to get started, that you can't afford to spend, you know, thousands of dollars on curriculum, then don't look at those, okay? Just save yourself the sanity and stick to what you know. You can homeschool completely for free. I do have a couple videos coming up, you know, in a few weeks on that. So stay tuned. Make sure you've rang that notification bell while you're down there. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't as well. But yes, so I totally lost my train of thought because I interjected there. Oh, okay. So I was talking about curriculum. You can homeschool for free all the way up to spending tons of money. Okay, so you got to decide where you fall. This is something you really want to keep in mind when you're doing your research for your curriculum. All right, step number 7 is you're going to make a plan. Okay, here's my caveat with making a plan, because I've had a caveat with many of these, is that you're going to make a plan, but you're not going to stick to a plan. Okay, I know I've said this before in another video. I don't remember which one, but you are going to make the plan, but you are not going to marry the plan. You are going to allow yourself the freedom to move things around, adjust, take things off, add things in. You're going to make an ideal plan based on your current knowledge of the situation, and then you're not going to marry it. You're going to allow yourself to make changes. But what making a plan can do is, if you're looking at curriculum and you know that this curriculum takes over an hour, but this one takes 20 minutes, and then for another topic you have another curriculum that takes an hour and a curriculum that only takes, you know, 30 minutes, you are maybe not going to choose both of the curriculums that take over an hour. You know, maybe you're going to choose between these two over here that take an hour, which one is most important to you, and then you're going to choose the other one that only takes 25 or 30 minutes, so that you're not spending, you know, if you buy every curriculum you buy, it takes over an hour, you're going to spend your entire day doing homeschool, and I'm going to tell you right now, your kids aren't going to be into that idea. So like, think about those kinds of things when you're making a plan. Decide what days of the weeks, you know, if you have all of your curriculum takes 5 days a week, maybe that doesn't fit your style. I know that doesn't fit a lot of homeschooler styles, because even though we homeschool, we don't spend a lot of time at home, okay? So we only homeschool 4 days a week because we have one day where we're out of the house completely all day long. So I'm not going to look at curriculum, all the curriculum that takes 5 days a week. I'm going to look at for curriculum that takes 2 to 4 days a week. Or if it's a 5 day a week, can I kind of condense that a little bit? Is it easy to combine 2 lessons into one? You know, that kind of thing. So that's why you want to kind of make a plan of how these are going to fit together. It's like puzzle pieces. How do my puzzle pieces fit together before you start purchasing? Okay, so that's why I say narrow it down to like 2 or 3 when you're doing your research, and then start plugging those in and think about those things like budget and how long does this curriculum take and how many things am I able to cover and the allotted time. So if you're new and you don't know, a good estimate for time is like your little ones, like you're just starting out, you've got like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I'll tell you, none of mine made it that long for those really younger ages. And then kind of like in those upper elementary to, you know, middle, you're going to get like 2 to 3 hours out of your kids. And then once they hit high school, hopefully you're able to get, you know, closer to that 3, maybe even 4 hour, depending on, you know, what they're covering. But you're not going to get a lot of time out of your kiddos. So that's something you really need to keep in mind when you are thinking about what curriculum you're choosing. All right, and then number 8 on my list, this one's less of a step. It's more of something I want you to keep in mind during this whole process, is that it's curriculum is a tool, okay? Guys, it is not something that you have to follow exactly. You do not have to, everything that it says to do, you don't have to do all those things. If something doesn't work for you, it's okay to scratch that part off and do all the rest of it that does work for you, okay? Make curriculum work for you. It is a tool to help facilitate your learning. It is not exactly what you have to do to have a successful homeschool. So, and also with this, don't feel like you have to finish every curriculum. I can tell you as a former public school teacher, never once, and I taught 2 different subjects, never once did I finish my entire textbook. Never, not once, okay? It's just, there's too much to cover in a topic. So, and you're gonna revisit these things over the years, so you don't need to cover it all right now, okay? So don't feel like because the this curriculum has 30 lessons that you have to do all 30 lessons. Maybe you're doing history and they cover some culture that, your child just really isn't interested in, and it's not something that they're, it's not going to be a detriment to them if they don't cover it. So you're just going to skip that one chapter and you're going to move on to the other ones, okay? Or you don't get to finish it. That's okay. Say you have a math curriculum and you don't get to the last 3 chapters. They're not going to die because they're going to revisit these concepts again in a later math course, okay? So don't feel like you are tied to your curriculum. Don't feel like you have to finish your curriculum. Remember that curriculum is a tool for you. It is not something you have to be married to. That is my tips for picking curriculum. I hope that this was helpful to you. If you have any questions about any of this process, please comment down below. I'm happy to answer them. You can also direct message me over on Instagram at Homeschool-ology or over on my website at homeschool-ology.com. You can message me on either one there and I'm happy to answer them, or right here down in the comments. I'm around in all 3 places. If you are a seasoned homeschool mom, or at least have a few years under your belt, did I miss anything? Was there any tips that you have that help you narrow down curriculum choices and decide what to choose? I'd love to hear that down in the comments as well. Again, if you have not already done so, I would love it and really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It lets YouTube know that you like this kind of content. It lets me know that you like this kind of content and I can keep making it for you. And I think that's going to be it for me today. So I hope you will come back and chat with me again real soon, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.